Hello everybody, this is Kyle, here with another video about today's theme is happiness. How do we become happier? How do we find happiness? What does happiness look like? And why are we looking to get it? So basically a lot of my earlier videos, I devoted this channel to self-improvement and motivation and things like that, how to improve your skills, how to get better skills in terms of social skills and things like that, your mentality and things like that in order to live a more productive life. But over the last few months, I would say probably in September, it's now December, I've really gone into happiness research and positive psychology, looking at what actually tends to make people happy and what we can do to increase our happiness on a day-to-day basis. So I'd like to go over a little bit about what positive psychology says about happiness and why you should pay attention to that. So, the first thing that has almost entirely been shown to increase happiness is social connections and social relationships. So, human beings are a naturally social animal. We are extremely social. We do not do well with isolation, and people tend to get very lonely and actually have negative physical side effects from being isolated. So, when a person isolates themselves, often they'll get very strong negative emotions of sadness and anger and things like that, because really your body and your brain is telling you spend time with people. From an evolutionary background, this could be seen as a positive trait for early humans. If you think about it, a human being is not a particularly dangerous animal physically. Sometimes we are, but for the most part, not. Especially in comparison to things like lions and tigers and rhinos and crocodiles and all the things out there that can take a bite out of you and eat you. Human beings are not very well equipped to deal with that kind of thing. Those super powerful predator animals. But what we are good at is cooperating with one another in order to achieve goals. So human beings are very, very good at cooperating. If you look at early tribal people or the people who are in tribes nowadays, how they hunt a deer is they kind of run it to exhaustion. We're very good at long distance running, but human beings are also very good at planning in a group. So basically, we have an internal genetic drive to connect with other people. We have an internal biological part of our brain that tells us that we need to spend more time with people. So if you're not spending time with people, what's going to happen is you're going to feel these overwhelming negative feelings. And a lot of us also live in a culture that is very individualistic. So if you live in the United States, Canada, Europe, Australia, but even some Asian countries like Japan and South Korea, to my knowledge, I'm not sure about South Korea, but Japan for sure, they have a very individualistic culture in which you basically, do things on your own. You're like the lone wolf, like a lone cowboy out in the world, making making ends meet and doing what you can do. And so, because we're such an individualistic culture, it can sometimes be harder for people in this culture to really connect with other people. I was talking to a coworker from Peru, and he said when he went home, his parents would always be there, and they'd have a maid, and there'd always be cousins and things like that. Whereas here in Canada, where I live, it can be very isolating and cold because even families who are supposedly close don't really spend a lot of time together. And even if they love each other, they just might not spend that time with one another, right? So some of us live in a very individualistic culture. And basically, what happiness research has said, positive psychology has said that social relationships are the key, the number one most important thing to living a happy life. If you don't have people who you are well connected to, then basically you can't be in the group of the happiest people. You need other people around you, and you need quality social relationships in order to actually be in the happiest group of people. So, me reading this research, that was a big mind-blowing thing because, in my personal life, I had a habit of being kind of an isolated guy, rather spend my time in my room reading or playing video games or playing guitar by myself rather than spending, time out with my family and, turning down invitations from friends and getting into a career which really did not have many people in it. I was doing delivery driving for quite a while. So, I myself were very, I was very isolated, I think, in many ways. And reading some of this research, it did actually tell me for sure, like, you need to connect with other people. You need to spend more time actually talking to other people rather than isolating yourself. So I put that into practice, and I did become much happier as a result. I don't feel the overwhelming anxiety or sadness that I felt when I was isolated. Nowadays, I talk with my best friends and family basically every day. I'm always sending them a text in the morning. I've got a group on Facebook that, we send stuff back and forth, and I've got a big WhatsApp full of different people from around the world that I talk to as well. So I've got a lot of different social connections going on, and the physiological feeling that goes with this is a sense of peace and sort of comfort and security, because in a way you feel tied to all these different people out there who can kind of validate that you exist, and also you can influence them with your thoughts and opinions and things like that, but then you also get influenced by them, so you have stories and you have more information coming in from a variety of sources. Can really make you feel balanced and kind of at ease, that you might not know everything, but you're kind of more in touch with what's going on in the world and other people. And I think that I can actually, I've thought about the increase of extremism over the 2010s in terms of, say, the far right, the alt-right, communists, and, all manner of extremist politics that moved away from sort of a more bland but safe centrism. I think a lot of that had to do with the isolation of the internet, of people stopping talking to one another in real life, out in the real world, and instead just, going to their online community where they feel like, full of hate and stuff, but they do get some kind of connection with these strangers. And the problem with going online to get your connection with other people is that these people don't actually know you. It depends on the location. Like if you go on Twitter or something, at least you have a Twitter handle and it's the same person over and over, so they can, talk to you over time and get to know you, and you can have online Twitter friends. But something like 4chan, you're always anonymous, so, the likelihood of people getting to know you is pretty much zero. And so all these people are just kind of a mass of unknown, angry voices mostly. So yeah, the happiness research, there's a big research project from Harvard over I think it was about the last 100 years or so, of people, and it was studying how happy they felt over time. And I think there was more than 1,000 participants, including the children of the people from the original study. But basically the study showed that the happiest people were the most socially connected people, were the people with the most friends and family and most social things going on. So basically, taking that into account, you can't be in the happiest group of people without being connected to other people. So, in your life, I would say it would be your best bet to implement these findings into your own life. Start to strengthen your relationships with the people around you. Talk more with your family. I would say the best thing you can do is strengthen the relationships you already have. So if you already have friends and family, then to go further and to like talk about deeper things, open up with them. Talk about things that are on your mind, share with them, and also, just strengthen the relationships through quantity. I think there's two different ways basically that you can strengthen a relationship: through quantity. So, whereas before I might talk to my mom once a week, you can bump it up to 2 times a week, 3 times a week, or even eventually, like sending a text every day or something like that. So you can bump up the quantity of how often you talk to somebody else, but you can also improve the quality by being more real with them, by talking about more, deeper things that you're like really holding on to, negative things that if you shared with them, they might be able to say, oh, I'm sorry you feel that way, and tell you something and reassure you and things like that. And not everybody will be ready for that or willing to do that. There's a lot of people who, they don't want you to share your personal thoughts with them because they're a little scared of that kind of intimacy with somebody else. But I would say it's in your best bet to try to improve both the quantity of social relationships, but also the quality. So also improving the kind of relationship you have with them, so it's a little bit deeper and putting more positivity into it. So in my sort of non-technical view, I guess a low quality relationship would be one where maybe you talk every once in a while and you share a laugh, but you don't feel like you really know them on a personal level or that you can really share things with them. Whereas a quality relationship is one where there's an openness to dialogue pretty much about anything, and you can talk to them about anything. So I would say, yeah, two different things: improve the quantity of social connection, so going from 1 day a week to 3 days a week, 4 days a week, and improve the quality so that you are talking about deeper things which are more meaningful and important and will make you feel more connected to this person. So social relationships, yeah, for sure, you can definitely talk more with people and get to know them and share something with them. But another interesting finding was that it's really extroverted behavior in terms of talking to other people that makes people happier. So basically, there's been studies where they had two strangers sitting beside each other, and people predicted that by not talking to somebody else, they would be happier. They'd be happier being isolated. Like, I do not want to talk to this person. But then in the study, they had the two people actually talk, and then they both felt happier afterwards. So basically, the results of that one study is that everybody loves talking. They just don't think they will. They believe that the person on the bus or the person in line at the store or just some person who sit beside in class or whatever, they believe that they'll have a bad interaction by talking to this person, but overwhelmingly by talking to somebody else, you feel better, you feel happier. So basically, you don't even have to be just restricting your connection to other people with friends and family and your closed off little tribe, but you can also get a sense of community and just the positive aspects of talking to somebody else by talking to a stranger, by talking to somebody at the grocery store in the lineup, a teller at the bank, a neighbor, whatever, just somebody that you're not super close with, but you can still have some kind of like, hey, how's the weather? How's it going? Oh, yeah, this lineup's taking a while. Oh, what are you getting for supper? These kind of things, which is, I guess, a social skill not everybody has, but basically the results of the research are that everybody loves talking. Everybody does, even the people who think they're introverts. For a long time, I thought of myself as an introvert, somebody that didn't like to talk to other people. Or not necessarily that I didn't like to talk to them, but that I got more energy being alone and things like that. So yeah, that's I guess an identity issue, that you can hold on to this identity and be like, well, yeah, I'm not an extrovert. I don't like talking to people. Well, the research kind of does say that almost everybody loves talking to somebody else. So I think it's more likely that you're holding a lot of negative ideas about strangers, or maybe you're not comfortable with small talk, or these kind of things. And really, probably, I think I've understood now that a lot of the disconnect between people really isn't people's fault. Like, you have to forgive people for not talking to one another, because we do have this ingrained biological thing telling us not to talk to other people. From what I've read, most of the deaths throughout human history have been by other humans. So it makes sense biologically to have that fear of a stranger, to have that apprehension, or maybe even to see them in a negative light, like, oh, this is a bad person, when you haven't even talked to them, just because, it was a survival mechanism throughout our history. And it still is to some extent a survival mechanism. If you're walking alone late at night, you can keep in the back of your mind, oh, research says people like to talk to each other, but should you really, talk to this random person? And both because they could be dangerous, or they'll think you're dangerous. If I'm walking on a street 3 a.m, it's dark out, and there's a woman walking towards me, that would be, not a good time to be like, hey, how's the weather? If you watched a movie recently, that's just crazy. Like, so, you obviously have to keep in mind context. Not everywhere you can be talking, but Generally, I would say that you should keep in mind that strangers do want to talk, especially if you're in kind of a communal situation where you're doing the same thing, like you're in school together, you sit beside them, or you're in line at the grocery store or something like that, then talking to people is not going to be a terrible thing. And also, I think generally you can look around you at the people around you talking and laughing, and instead of having this internal idea of like, oh, shut up, please be quiet, I just want to be here in silence or whatever, you can understand that, well, you know what, talking makes people feel good. So these people who are talking, laughing, they're probably feeling better than the people who are quiet. So then you shouldn't put that expectation on them that they have to be quiet. You should understand that they're talking and laughing because that's a human expression of feeling good. So, and I like to feel good, and everybody likes to feel good. So, and you like to feel good as well. So, you're helping other people to feel good by accepting that they can talk to one another. So that was happiness with sociability. Like I said, improving your social relationships, both the quantity of them and the quality, will really, really help. I would say nowadays, I actually have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have more than a dozen people that I'm maintaining conversations with, and some are closer than others. But I do feel like pretty much at any time I can start talking to somebody else and have a conversation going. And another researcher said that it's about 6 to 7 hours of socializing is the happiest for people. People tend to be happiest after 6 to 7 hours of socializing. And if you think about it, a lot of people are not getting that amount of socialization. They're not getting that amount of talking to one another. A lot of people are only, if you go to school, I remember when I went to university and I would, go on the bus in the morning. I would go to class. I would take notes. I wouldn't say anything, wouldn't ask any questions. I might talk to somebody in my class, but I'd go to this class and this class, get on the bus, come home, and honestly, I wouldn't feel that good. I wasn't very happy doing that. And then I'd go home and just do homework and maybe text a few friends, but not really a lot more than that. So I was probably getting, I would say, an hour of socializing every day, and you wondered why I was depressed and unhappy back in the day. Well, that's kind of it, that I didn't get that, 6 to 7 hours of socializing that a human being needs. And it's hard, but, like if you think about it, the tribal life of human beings, when people used to live in tribes, you'd be surrounded by basically your friends and family all day. You'd all day be talking to them, and that's kind of the way that human beings should operate, but we don't, because of our culture, because of capitalism, because of industrialization and certain historical movements that led to, individualism within, say, Western society. And so, it's not your fault if you're unhappy with the way things are, because things aren't really set up in a way for people to be socializing as much as they should. So, it's a bigger societal, cultural issue. It's not something that you have to blame yourself for. And it's something that I don't want to blame myself for, as if I have full control, as if there's something wrong with me if I can't just be alone all the time and be happy. That's kind of like saying there's something wrong with me if I get thirsty when I don't have enough water. No, there's nothing wrong with me. That's just the way the human body is set up. That's the way that the mind is set up. The human brain is set up where you need social connections and you need to connect with people. So, you don't have to feel upset because you're not getting enough socialization. No, instead, you should use that feeling of, wow, I'm not very happy, to go out and talk to other people, to actually form more connections and talk and talk and talk and talk until you're happier. Which tends to be the way it goes. The more you talk and the more conversation you have, the more you feel like you can relax, because your inner mind is more in congruence with the world around you. Maybe a more philosophical idea, but the idea that what's going on in my head is now being shared with the world, and the world is kind of being shared with me. So basically, because of this, you can think, wow, I need to socialize more. So that's what I've been doing, and honestly, I feel much happier for it. I have a lot of people I can talk to, and if you're unsure about whether you can do this, well, just remember that, I wasn't always this way, and I didn't always have as many friends as I do now. There's definitely been times in my life where I was super, super isolated and unhappy. And I guess also another sort of unfortunate thing is you look at people who don't have many friends and you can kind of guess that they're probably not happy. Like, this is something, it's beyond individuals. It's just part of how the brain is set up. Like, people just don't, feel good when they're not socially connected. So you must get socially connected. So this video's ran on a lot. I think there are other topics in happiness that I'll touch on later. Gratitude, altruism, and spirituality, and a positive mindset. But I think in terms of happiness and sociability, I would really recommend to anybody, improve the quantity and quality of your relationships, talk more, and I would suggest also therapy if you can, because the therapist is basically set up as a person that you can talk to about whatever you want. You can talk to about trauma you've experienced, PTSD, depression, anxiety, feelings of loneliness and poor self-worth and self-esteem and confidence, and all these negative things, political things and whatever that's really holding you down and keeping you from living a happy life. You can talk to somebody and let it go, and you can share it, and then you can kind of let go of it once you've shared it with people, which is how I usually find is that if I have this negativity within me, if I keep it in me, it's an energy that if I keep in me, it's just going to make me feel bad. But if you share it with other people, it's like you're giving away that negative energy back into the world, and it can kind of disperse, and you can forget about it, and you'll become equal with the rest of the world. And this is maybe more of a spiritual mindset that I've sort of discovered as well over this period of trying to become happier. But in terms of other tips and tricks for sociability, there's one that I've done before, which I still do actually, which seems to help, which is something I learned a long time ago, is that if I want to talk with somebody and it's kind of like I'm stressed out, like I can't naturally just start talking to them, or it's in kind of a situation like at work where it's a little bit more stressful, I use the countdown in my head. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then I just talk to them. So from the outside, it looks like naturally I just start talking to somebody, but what's going on inside is there's kind of a mechanical sort of thing that's like, you have to talk to this person for your own good, and then you do. So you can give that a try. There are other things you can do, maybe take small baby steps, so maybe just looking at somebody for a second, or maybe just walking closer to somebody, or maybe just coughing, so at least you're getting something verbal out there, but I've found that when you form a connection once, the scariest part before you talk to someone is almost always before you talk to somebody. Like, before you talk to somebody, they can be very scary and difficult to talk to, but after you start that first conversation with them, now you have rapport, and now you can talk to them a little bit freer. So I would say that you should generally try to just say hello to somebody. How was your drive? How was the weather? Blah, blah, blah. And yeah, it's scary and stressful, but you've put yourself out there and you've made some kind of a connection, and now you can relax because it's going to be better after that. So the scariest time tends to be before you talk to somebody. And then, yeah, with the research, just, talking to strangers and whoever you can. That connects back to an earlier video on social momentum I made, where I talked about how talking to a few people or just putting yourself out there a little bit will get the ball rolling so you feel more expressive and more happy. And yeah, sociability, I suppose in terms of like tips you can do, there's almost a door-to-door sales thing, which is I was doing door-to-door sales for a while, where you send out 30 messages of hi, how are you, to people on your Facebook, people on Instagram, old family members, relatives, cousins, whatever. You send out, hey, how are you doing? Some of them will respond, a lot of them won't, and that's okay. But for the people who do respond, they might be more willing to have this back and forth, and they might actually become sort of long-standing friends, which is a great thing to be part of, is that you're actually now being part of like these connections to friends that you didn't have before. So yeah, you can send out a bunch of messages on Facebook, Instagram. There's a website where you can talk to people from around the world, and I got people's WhatsApp from that. So I've got like 10 people from different places in the world: Indonesia, Costa Rica, Africa, Uganda, Gambia, I've got people from around the world that I can just talk to, and so you can fulfill that social need throughout the day by talking to people. It's a beautiful thing. It's really helpful. So, different things you can try. Maybe I'll come up with more tips for another video, but the basics to remember is that if you have this perspective where I can be alone, I can be isolated, I can be by myself, I can shut off from the outside world and I'll be happier, then you are living a delusional belief out. So it's unfortunate, and it's not everybody knows it, which is, it's more about education, is that you just haven't been educated to know that being a social person is to be a happier person. So if you're under this kind of false belief that you can isolate and become a hermit in order to be happier, perhaps it's best for you to change that belief, or be a little bit more open to the idea that, no, I actually need other people. I actually do need to talk to other people. I do need long-standing social relationships in order to flourish and generally have this calmer, sort of more peaceful view of the world and view of yourself by being happy, which is what happiness is like, a calmer, more blissful state of being in the world. Being aware that you can't get that if you're totally isolated. So it is wise, I would say, to be connected to other people. It's wise. And if you have this internal philosophy, this long-standing view that no, I need to be by myself, I need to be separate in order to be happy, then it's in your best interest to doubt that view a little bit. Doubt it. Almost in the same sense of you leaving a religion or changing your views on some long-standing political thing, changing from left to right wing or right to left wing or whatever. It can be difficult to change your views, but you should have a little bit of doubt over the idea that isolation is good for you. You should doubt it a little bit, because the research has really said that it is social connection that makes you happier. So doubt that view that you need to be by yourself, and have a little bit more, a little less skepticism towards the extroverts and towards the well-connected people. A little bit less anger towards them, because they're probably living a happier life than you are. So that's all I have to say for now. I know happiness is a very important topic, because I think that's what we're all trying to be at the end of the day. That's kind of the end goal of anything we do, whether it be through superficial means or wiser, more charitable means or whatever. We're all trying to be happy. So, keep in mind the thing about friends and family and social relationships that will make you happier over time. So hopefully that helped, and have a great day.